Hello, I'm Sandy Arnett.
And I'm Joanna Campbell.
On this edition of Commuter Connections, we'll tell you about the successful launch of Baltimorelink and what the MDOT MTA is doing to further educate riders on the new system.
We'll hear from MDOT MTA's Citizens Advisory Committee about the impact it had on Baltimorelink and the complete redesign of our bus network.
To keep with its mission to provide safe, efficient, and reliable transit, the MDOT MTA has scheduled an 18-day shutdown of the light rail system for necessary rail maintenance. We'll tell you how that affects your travel.
It's almost back to school time. We'll give you a look at how the MDOT MTA is preparing students to ride the new Baltimorelink system and share tips on how your children can be safe and respectful on transit.
And if you love games, rides, and tons of excitement, you won't want to miss this year's Maryland State Fair. We'll show you the best transit options to get there, all on this edition of Commuter Connections.
The moment we've all been waiting for has finally arrived. Baltimorelink is here. MDOT MTA has worked hard to ensure a successful launch.
Joining us today to talk about the transformative changes Baltimorelink already is bringing to our region and next steps to ensure transit riders are familiar with the new bus routes is MDOT MTA Acting Administrator Kevin Quinn. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Sandy. Hi, Joanna.
So I know it's a monumental challenge to totally revamp a public transit system. How would you say the launch of Baltimorelink has gone so far?
I'd say overall it's gone pretty well. We went out and, overnight unveiled 5,000 new bus stop signs. We rolled out all new high-frequency routes at 3 a.m. on Sunday morning. We had a call center that was prepared and ready to go, and on the Monday of launch handled 17,000 calls in a single day. We have a website that was able to handle a tremendous amount of volume as well. And so between that and also the outreach that we did the days of launch, we had 300 MDOT business unit ambassadors out on the system handing out schedules and shaking hands and saying, let me help you get to where you need to go today. Given all that together, it went really well. It went pretty well.
So if you have to look at what worked particularly well and what you feel still needs improvement, what would you say?
I think we did a great job of getting the word out. We've been talking about Baltimorelink for quite some time and doing a good bit of outreach. That said, there's still a lot of riders that need to know and need to understand the system, and they're learning it day by day, but we're going to continue to get the word out about the system and get the word out about routes that have changed and really helping people get to their jobs, to schools, to hospitals, wherever they need to go all around the region.
And how have our riders reacted to the changes with Baltimorelink? Yeah,
so many have reacted very positively. They've seen some new one-seat rides that they didn't have before. Another great aspect of Baltimorelink is new high-frequency transit. So, we have routes that are now running every 10 minutes or better on some cases in some heavy hauling corridors and every 15 minutes during the midday. And so between that and some new kind of cross-town trips, part of the Baltimorelink philosophy is not every bus route needs to go downtown. And so people are starting to see that and starting to realize that and say, I can get all the way across town without having to deal with the downtown congestion. That's been really important.
So how has Baltimorelink given riders better access to job sites and other places like that?
So one thing we focused on a lot as part of the planning of Baltimorelink was doing modeling and projections of certain job centers around the region. So we worked with the Baltimore Metropolitan Council, our MPO for the region, and we did travel demand modeling to really be sure that job centers were still well served under Baltimorelink. And so we're seeing that. And so there are many job centers all over the region that are really benefiting from the program.
I know that there was a report out recently that showed it probably took about 95 minutes, I think it was, to get from West Baltimore to the Amazon Fulfillment Center. And with Baltimorelink, how has that changed?
Yeah, so we've made that trip a lot easier. So there was a reporter that recently took a trip to Amazon, transferred twice, took 3 buses. We were recently able to do it with just 2 buses and reduce that travel time from 95 minutes to about 50 minutes.
Oh, that's significant.
That's great. It is significant.
That is great.
How have the new dedicated bus lanes and transit signal priority helped the buses get around town with Baltimorelink?
The dedicated bus lanes are a really important piece of the Baltimorelink project. And so, we worked very closely with Baltimore City Department of Transportation to get new dedicated lanes down on Pratt, Lombard, Baltimore, and Fayette streets. And they're completely done on Pratt and Lombard and just finishing up Baltimore and Fayette right now. That's a great way for our buses to cruise right through the downtown congestion, to not get stuck in the same slog as all the other cars, but to really bypass that. And that's a real benefit for our riders for both a faster service and a more reliable service. They're just not getting hung up in that traffic jam that everyone else is getting stuck in.
And we've talked about the feedback from our riders, but what about our bus operators? What kind of feedback have you been getting for MDOT MTA to implement, and would there be any tweaks?
So we have gotten some fantastic feedback from our bus operators. So from the Sunday of launch, for about a week, what we've been doing is surveying our bus operators. So we've had staff out 12, 15 hours a day at every single one of our 4 bus garages, surveying the operators. And it's, part of it is kind of taking the pulse of the system and how things are going out there, And another part of it is getting really these substantive changes that the operators want to see made. And that could, be a service adjustment or a certain turn on a street, or it could be just a bus stop sign change that needs to move 10 feet, and that would be better and easier for a bus to pull up to a curb. And so we've gotten a ton of feedback from our operators that we're really taking to heart, and we'll be making those adjustments as we see demand.
How much longer can people make comments on the system?
People can always make comments. We're always accepting comments. So at the MTA we have service changes 3 times a year, a June summer service change, a fall service change, and then a winter service change. And so this is a continual conversation that we'll be having with our riders and with the public to always be making improvements to the system.
What tips can you give riders who are just experiencing the Baltimorelink system for the first time, and people who maybe just want to try it out?
Best tip I can give you is get information before you get on the bus. So check out the website, mta.maryland.gov or baltimorelink.com, 2 great resources for information. Also feel free to talk to some of our transit ambassadors that are out on the street, or check out our transit store down at 6 St. Paul Street. All great resources and places to get information about the new Baltimorelink system.
Well, thank you for joining us today to talk about the new Baltimorelink.
Thank you.
Public input plays a major role in bringing about change. We'll hear from a group that had a significant impact in redesigning our half-century-old bus network. Stay with us.
A lot of work went into designing and implementing the new Baltimorelink transit system. It took well over a year and a half of planning and lots of public input.
One group heavily involved in this process was MDOT MTA's Citizens Advisory Committee. Joining us to discuss the impact her team had on bringing about Baltimorelink is Citizens Advisory Committee Chair Nancy Huggins.
So glad to be here with you all today.
Thank you
for joining us.
So what is MDOT MTA's Citizens Advisory Committee?
MDOT's MTA's Citizens Advisory Committee is of a group of individuals that do not set policy or regulations. They're basically the ears and eyes of the citizens that utilize Baltimorelink.
And what is its mission?
Its mission is to maintain consistent and positive communication between the citizens that are using all of the modes of transportation and MTA.
So Nancy, roughly how many people make up the Citizens Advisory Committee, and how often do you all meet?
So there's about 12 of us, and we meet once a month at MTA's headquarters.
So what were some of the key issues and concerns that came up as you were having these meetings for the Citizens Advisory Committee regarding the launch of Baltimorelink?
Well, mostly they were concerned that folks would not know what changes were happening. So as a result of that, MTA had over 200 meetings out there in the entire region, and then our committee took that information down to folks that we know in the public, so that they would understand where the meetings are, when the meetings would take place. They also knew where they could comment if they could not get to a meeting, and then where to find additional information. And again, our meetings are open to the public, so we did have people come in concerned that their routes, their old route, and the new routes were not going to be succinct, and that some people were going to be without service altogether. So we made sure that we took that up the chain so that folks would understand, folks at MTA would understand that there are some concerns about specific routes.
Change is not always easy. Now that we've seen what appears to be the successful launch of Baltimorelink, what's some of the feedback you've been getting about the new system?
Change is not easy, and I was an ambassador, and what I saw were folks that came out. It was a mixed bag. Some people had no idea, but I did have many people that had been studying the changes. I was out on Sunday, and they came out and they rode the routes because they wanted to see where do they go and seamless transition. Of course, in my experience, I did see that there could be some tweaking of specific routes, and I did listen to the concerns. I did get to use my first grade Spanish in a lot of ways, which was a lot of fun for me, and just being out there and hearing what the public. So as a result, those that were out, we received a survey to be able to express the concerns that we saw out there.
It sounds like you all, your committee has really been the ears on the ground for really kind of communicating what the public was feeling about the new Baltimorelink design, which is great.
Very hands-on, very hands-on, and it was so important that, looking at it from a transportation planner point of view, I mean, you know what you know out there, and you love looking at the maps and making sure, and there are plenty of folks that might ride the routes and all that, but those folks that use it every day, and believe me, they knew, if they rode it on Monday, Tuesday they knew what they had to do, because the passengers and the citizens out there are resilient, and they know it.
They planned ahead too,
Absolutely.
so that's great. Now, if someone wants more information about MDOT-MTA's Citizens Advisory Committee, where can they go?
I would send them first to the website, to mta.maryland.gov.
Okay.
So that's where they can look at our mission and our purpose, and the agendas and the minutes are all on there, so they'll be able to see what we've been doing.
Or if they want to attend a meeting, they can
Absolutely.
come over.
It's every third Tuesday of the month at MTA headquarters.
So Nancy, thank you again for joining us on the show, and thank you for your help with the launch of Baltimorelink.
It's my pleasure, and it was a lot of fun.
Great. Keeping the rails safe for travel is an ongoing process. Find out what you'll need to plan ahead this summer. Stay with us.
Safety is and has always been a #1 priority at the MDOT-MTA, and the agency is preparing for necessary maintenance work that will partially shut down the light rail system for 18 days this summer.
Riders will be encouraged to plan ahead. Here to talk with us today about the shutdown and what it will mean to transit riders is MDOT-MTA Manager of Service Contract Compliance, Scott Schell. Thank you for joining us.
It's nice to be back.
So we hear some upgrades are coming to light rail. Can you tell us a little bit about the work that will take place?
Believe it or not, our light rail system is 25 years old this year. And so to continue to maintain the infrastructure of the light rail system, occasionally we have to do work that's comprehensive enough that it requires us to either partially shut down the system or do a single tracking. This is going to require us to shut down part of the system for 18 days.
And how long will it be? I know you're mentioning 18 days. What are the dates we're talking about here for the summer?
Yeah, we've only recently nailed down the dates, and the dates for everybody to remember. The construction will begin Tuesday, July 25th, scheduled to run through August the 11th, and that's a Friday. Don't have any reason to believe that we'll take any longer doing it. We're going to try to finish it sooner.
Why were those dates chosen for the shutdown?
We coordinate extensively when we plan these type of construction projects with the city of Baltimore. We look at all of the various events that are happening in Baltimore, such as Artscape and the Pride events and other the sporting events and so forth. And these were chosen as the dates that would least impact the city of Baltimore and our riders.
Is it just part of the system that will be closed, and from what point to what point?
Glad you asked. Yes, it'll just be the section of the system going through the downtown area. In the north, we'll close every station beginning at North Avenue, southward down to Camden Yards. Now, Camden Yards and North Avenue will remain open, but that'll be the end of the line going in that direction.
So how many station stops are we talking?
We're talking 9 total stations that are affected. This will also include Penn Station. There will be no light rail service to and from Penn Station during the close down.
Now, why is this maintenance work necessary and how often is it done?
MTA has a long-term plan for the maintenance and the upkeep of our infrastructure along all of our rail systems, MARC, Metro system, and in this case, light rail. And so this year we're doing a project in the downtown area to replace rail in the section of Mount Royal, as well as the foundation that supports the rail.
And how important is safety to MDOT MTA?
Safety is the number one item on our cornerstone, right? Safety, reliability, efficient, and world-class customer service, right? So we never want to put our passengers into a unsafe vehicle or an unsafe train car, and so we're going to make sure that we keep the rails in tip-top shape before any breakdown would occur.
And how are you minimizing the impact on light rail customers while you do this work?
Similar to what we did last year when we shut down the Metro system for 23 days, we've contracted with a company, the same company as last year, to provide bus services, what we call a bus bridge between all of the stations. We'll provide both an express bus bridge, which will link Camden Yards directly with North Avenue in both directions, and it'll also link each of the individual closed stations in between. So we'll be able to accommodate passengers along the entire length of the system. We'll just be doing it with buses.
And how often will the buses operate?
The buses during peak will probably operate on about 10 to 15 minute headways. In other words, a passenger could expect a vehicle every 10 to 15 minutes. During the non-peak periods, the weekends, probably closer to 20 to 30 minute headways. We'll also be doing a shuttle between Penn Station specifically and North Avenue to link Penn Station with the rest of the system.
Oh, okay. And what advice would you give transit riders in preparation for this 18-day light rail shutdown?
Same as we did last year, plan ahead,
Okay.
allow extra time. I would suggest initially allowing an extra hour, and then as they ride the system, you may be a rider yourself. As you ride the system and you experience how long it takes, you can adjust downward. But I would say up front to allow yourself at least an hour if you're riding through the whole length of the system.
Where can people go for more information about the free shuttle bus service and the upgrades coming to the light rail system?
At first, we'd like to refer everybody to our website. Our website will soon be posting comprehensive information about this shutdown.
And you mean mta.maryland.gov?
Exactly. We'll also be putting signage out throughout the system. That'll go up early to mid-July in preparation for the shutdown. As well, we will have transit ambassadors out in the field. They will be out there about a week before we have the shutdown, handing out information and literature about what's going to happen, answering questions that passengers might have. And they'll be at all the stations, not only the ones affected, but the ones from Cromwell and BWI all the way up to Hunt Valley.
Thank you for joining us today, Scott. That's a lot of great information.
It's great to be here. Happy to come.
The start of the new school season is just around the corner. We'll tell you how the MDOT MTA is gearing up to prepare students to ride the new Baltimorelink system while ensuring they're safe and respectful on transit when we come back.
Now that we've had the official launch of Baltimorelink, it will be important that students returning to school know how to ride the new bus system while being safe and respectful of others on transit.
Joining us to talk about this is MDOT MTA Deputy Chief Operating Officer Sean Adderson and MDOT MTA Police Captain Theodore McLaughlin. Thank you, gentlemen, both for joining us today.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
So when do students return to school in the Baltimore area?
So this year, Baltimore City Public School students return to school on September the 5th, 2017, the day after Labor Day.
And how is MDOT MTA preparing to get these new students on board the new Baltimorelink system?
So we've been engaging with Baltimore City Public Schools for several months in a variety of ways. One, we got a lot of student input on the development of Baltimorelink as we were developing the routes and the structure of it. But now that we've rolled out Baltimorelink, the focus now is really on communicating to them. And so we've been working with Baltimore City Public Schools on a two-pronged approach. One is training up their staff on how to communicate with the students. So we've been doing training with a lot of their staff on who welcome the students into the school system, as well as teachers and their administrators. And then we've been focused on giving them a lot of materials. So some of the things we've been doing is working with them on a robocall, developing a program that will call the students and let them know about Baltimorelink, working with them and helping with developing their social media. So as their students who follow Baltimore City Public Schools social media platforms, we're helping them by putting out Baltimorelink related materials. We're also focused on putting out flyers in their back to school brochures and things that they send out to the students. So we've been engaging them in a variety of ways to try to help them get up to speed on what they need to know to travel the system.
So what would you say would be the biggest challenge in getting kids ready to ride the new Baltimorelink system?
I think the biggest challenge is that it's a big change. I mean, we've changed route names, we've changed destinations, we've changed numbers of the routes. So those students who caught a particular route to school at the end of this school year will be catching a different route, potentially going into next school year. So it's really understanding the difference between the old system and the new system. They'll pretty much be riding on the same streets, but they just need to know, hey, I catch this line versus that line.
Usually young people have young minds. They learn and catch on to things pretty quickly. But what would you say are some tips that you could give them just to make sure that they arrive to school on time?
The biggest thing is route planning, right? And so we would encourage them to use our website. You can use Google Planning. They can use the transit app. There's a variety of ways upon which they can figure out from my home to my school what the route plan is. So we would encourage them to do the route planning, even take the trip. Take the trip from home to school ahead of time, so that they test it out, know how long it takes and what the transfer points are going to be, and get a chance to see what that's going to be like.
Well, student safety is also a priority. Captain McLaughlin, the MDOT has won numerous safety and security awards over the years, including being identified as having the lowest number of serious crimes among top 12 U.S. transit agencies. What do you attribute to that success?
There are several cornerstones that the chief utilizes. One is the CompStat process, where we go and we analyze statistics, and especially on those things that are school-based or student-based. We go and we review those statistics and we deploy accordingly. Also, we have MOUs, memorandums of understanding with our allied agencies, Baltimore City Police, Baltimore City School Police, and all the surrounding agencies. So we work together to make sure we provide a safe and secure environment. We also we count on our patrons to help us. If they see something, we ask them to say something about it. I'm sure you're aware of that campaign. And we utilize all of those assets to make sure it's a safe and secure environment.
And why is it so important to have a safe transit system?
Well, we hope that a lot of people utilize public transportation as a means for people to get to school and to work and to come out to visit Baltimore. So, and we know that people want to be safe and secure in their environment. That's part of our job as MTA Police Force, to provide a safe and secure environment. So we want people to come out, we want them to utilize public transportation, so we want to ensure that it's safe and secure.
So how exactly is the MTA Police Force working with students to kind of ensure that they're being safe on the system, that they're being respectful on the system? What all are you doing?
Communication, especially what Mr. Adjutant said, speaking with the school administration, the Baltimore City School Police. We're advising them what's expected of them, what they should do and not do while riding public transportation, being respectful of those persons who are riding with them. So we communicate openly with them so that they know exactly what's expected of them. And the consequences are associated with bad behavior.
Now, do you all still have the Ride, Respect, and Relax program in effect?
Yes, somewhat.
Okay.
Initially, the Ride, Respect, and Relax, we would go out to the schools, they would sign a contract, they would agree to follow those rules. That's kind of been pulled back some. We still communicate those what we expect, those expectations to the students. We still go out openly and speak to them about it. We talk to the school officials about it. So in that way, yeah, it's still in effect. They still know what's expected of them, and they know the consequences of their actions if they violate those rules.
And Mr. Anderson, is there anything that we should know about student passes for this school year?
So we made a couple of tweaks to the pass for this upcoming school year. So this year, all of our students will get a 4-trip pass, which means that they get 4 trips of 120 minutes of unlimited transfers on the system. So again, that allows them to go to school, come back home, go to an extracurricular activity, and then come back from that extracurricular activity if what they engage in. And the hours of operation have been expanded. It used to be until 6 p.m. and we've expanded it to 8 p.m. So those are the 2 major changes that we've made to the pass for this upcoming school year.
So where can students and parents go for more information about Baltimorelink or just traveling on M.MTA's transit system in general?
So I think the first place is obviously to our website, mta.maryland.gov, and then also to baltimorelink.com. That's a great place to go. And last, you can also use our call center and call 410-539-5000. They will help you out with trip planning as well.
That's good advice. Well, thank you both for coming on the show. I hope we have a very successful school year with our students on Baltimorelink.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
It's almost that time for the Maryland State Fair to roll back into town. We'll give you a look at the quickest and most convenient way to get there. Stay tuned.
M.MTA is ready to help you reach all the fun, food, and festivities at the 136th Annual Maryland State Fair. From cotton candy and whack-a-mole to funnel cakes and the Ferris wheel, M.MTA is your direct connection to the fairgrounds.
And visitors are urged to leave their cars at home and take convenient, inexpensive public transit to the fair. Joining us with a look at your transit options is Donna Rawlins, Superintendent of Transportation for Light Rail at M.MTA. Welcome to Commuter Connections.
Thank you.
So tell us, when is the State Fair this year?
August 24th through September the 4th.
Okay, and I know it's usually held at the Maryland State Fairgrounds in Timonium.
That is correct.
So what would you say is the best way for people to get to the fair this year?
Light rail transportation.
What kinds of preparations is M.MTA responsible for when it comes to getting riders to the fairgrounds?
To ensure that we have safe, reliable, and clean service, adequate manpower, and that such, as far as operators, mechanics, and so forth.
So roughly, what is the cost for an individual to take light rail over to the State Fair?
$1.80 for one way for regular fare, $4.20 for all-day pass. For senior citizens and disability passes, 80 cents one way and $2.10 for all-day passes.
Not a bad price.
Real good.
Mm-hmm. And if riders want to stay all day at the State Fair, what are the hours of operations?
The hours of light rail service are 5 a.m. to 12 a.m. North and southbound light rail trains will leave Timonium Fairgrounds at 11 p.m. each day of the fair. And on Sunday and the holiday, the light rail service will start at 10 a.m. Northbound trains to Hunt Valley, southbound trains to Cromwell BWI will depart from Timonium Fairground on the hour beginning at 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. These trains will make all station stops.
Now, I know with some of the free parking, it can be limited on and around the fairgrounds. So what are some of the light rail stations that offer free parking for those who want to take light rail to the fairgrounds in Timonium?
Well, when taking light rail transportation to Timonium to the fairground, you can do Hunt Valley, Warren Road, Lutherville, Falls Road, Mount Washington, North Avenue, which has limited stops, Patapsco Station, Holland, Nursery Road, North Ithaca, Ferndale, Cromwell, and BWI Business District.
Okay, so there are several options where you can park for free.
That's correct.
For viewers who want to get more information on taking light rail service over to the State Fair in Timonium, where can they go?
mta.maryland.gov or marylandstatefair.com.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Donna.
Thank you so
We
much.
enjoyed having you on the show.
My pleasure.
We've come to the end of another Commuter Connections program. Thanks for joining us.
We'll see you next time. Take care.